Hi guys, so for my research paper I focused on why women in the Episcopal faith were allowed to be priests and women in the Catholic faith aren't, since they are so similar. So I started my paper by looking into the history of the Church of England. So when America was declaring their independence from England, the Church of England essentially did the same. At the time, the monarch in place was the head of the church. And so the Church of England kind of broke away in the American sense and became the Episcopal Church, which means that they're led by deacons. So they have a House of Bishops, and they have a House of Deputies, and they're very similar to the Senate and the House of Representatives. And they don't have a sole authority figure. They have a presiding bishop who's elected by those respective parties I just mentioned, and they're kind of similar to a president. So their churches basically took the same kind of path that America was taking during that time and set up a very democratic structure. So this is really important for the way that the church makes decisions. It's definitely more community-based, which allows them to be more progressive than the Catholic faith because they're not working from the top down. So the two faiths are very similar because they're both Christian, they both read from the same Bibles, of the same Bible, and they perform the same sacraments, and their services are essentially the same. The only big difference I could really find between the two was the fact that the Catholics have the sole authority figure of the Pope, and he has the authority to make statements that could never be changed. Whereas the Episcopal Church, everyone kind of works together to make the decisions within that church. So women were allowed to be deacons in the Episcopal faith in 1970, and 4 years later there were the Philadelphia 11. There were 11 women deacons who were irregularly ordained priests. So there were 4 bishops who were retired at the time and ordained these women as priests. It technically is allowed, but the Episcopal Church never officially said that this was okay. So these first women had a really difficult time because there were few people that wanted their leadership, and a couple of them actually left the faith because they were struggling with their ministry so much. And in 1976, their ordination was recognized, and the majority view of the church was that it was okay to ordain women, but that didn't mean that different parishes couldn't, it meant that different parishes still had the authority to deny women if they wanted to as their rector. And so women still had a difficult time with that, and it wasn't until 1997 where the Episcopal Church officially revised their canons, stating that you couldn't refuse a member of the clergy solely based on the grounds of gender. So now it's official that you can't refuse that. However, I talked to my aunt a lot about the struggle she's had with being a priest in the faith. And she said that women aren't well represented within the House of Bishops. So although there are many women enter the priesthood, not a lot of them become bishops, which means their voice isn't exactly as strong when it comes to decision for the faith. And also the parishes are still basically able to choose who they want as their head, in a sense. So it's not that they have the power to deny them, but they have the power to choose somebody else if they want to. So it's, my aunt, when she was in the Philadelphia area, was a priest in the church, but she wasn't the head. And she said that's due to the fact that usually larger parishes who have more money, they get to pick. And since its structure is different, the parishes, they pay their priests. It's not like in the Catholic faith where all the money comes from the top down. It's from the bottom up. So the parishes are paying for their priests, so arguably they should be able to pick who they want to have as their rector. So she had a little bit of difficulty finding a parish to serve as her own. And she even said that the parish that she holds now, she had to move to Boston, and she's the head of the parish out there. She said that many people didn't like her at first, mostly just because she was a woman. And she actually found out that she was being paid less than some of her male counterparts, and so she demanded equal pay from the parish, and she ended up getting paid the same amount now. But it just, I guess, writing this whole paper was kind of interesting just because I had this idealized view that since women had this opportunity within the Episcopal faith, that it was all easy and sunshine and rainbows, where it really wasn't. So and from like the conclusion I made about like the Catholic faith is just, you know, there's a great deal of reason why they don't agree with this. A lot of this has to do with the apostles and all of that. But I said, you know, a lot, as we've said before, comes down to sexuality, and I think if the Catholic Church would recognize that in and of itself and allow priests to be married instead of having to take a vow of celibacy, I think once that will happen, maybe they would be more progressive in allowing women to become priests as well. But I think not until that change is made that we'll see any progress in that sense. And, you know, hopefully Pope Francis's work for women to become deacons will actually go through, but I think it's just all still kind of up in the air right now. But it's also kind of still nice to know that, you know, there's still work in progress in the Episcopal faith as well. It's not just as easy as it might seem. They still have a long way to go, just like we definitely do in the Catholic faith. So, I don't know. I guess that's basically it. Thanks, guys.